Here's why contractors lose money trying to do everything alone. Because one voice actually equals zero power. If you're a plumbing, heating, or cooling contractor, you felt this. You follow the rules, you adapt to the new codes, you eat the cost when regulation changes, even when none of it was your idea. And when you're on your own, you don't have any leverage. You just absorb it. But what most contractors don't realize is that the rules costing you money weren't written with the contractors in the room. Today, I'm talking with Mark Valentini, an expert lobbyist on our side who works directly with lawmakers to shape laws and policies that impact plumbing and heating and cooling contractors and helps them stop working for free. Mark represents PHCC contractors at the national level, educating policymakers on how regulations actually affect you, your business, your employees, and your customers.
Policymakers don't have that understanding, and it's not because they're ignorant. It's because, we're competing with thousands of other interests.
And when contractors aren't united, your voice gets drowned out.
You probably had to wash your hands. It was nice that the water was warm. Don't take that for granted. We're sitting in a building with clean indoor air.
Yeah.
All right. These things that you don't really think about. All right. But you're sitting here reaping the benefits of what our members do, and you're not even thinking about it.
In this episode, you'll see why trying to go it alone is costing you money, how contractors have already changed laws by working together, and how real advocacy protects your margins before the damage is done. If you're tired of losing profits to decisions you had no say in, this conversation will change how you think about power in the trades. Let's get into it.
Mark, welcome to the Trade Traction podcast here at the PHCC Connect Show.
It's good to be here, Dennis. Thanks for having me again.
Absolutely. So Trade Traction's I'm all about trying to help apprentices, techs, business owners stop spinning their wheels, get traction in the trades. And it's when you get into business, or even some of the techs, you run into issues. You're driving in your truck and we're frustrated about how things are, laws or new codes and stuff like that. And little did we know that we actually can make a difference through PHCC.
We can. So PHCC is the oldest national building trades association in the country. Been around since 1883. We represent plumbing and HVAC contractors across the spectrum. Two truck shops, all the way up to 500 plus employee firms on the commercial side. Everything in between. Open shop and union contractors as well. Residential service installation repair, commercial service installation repair. We have guys that do, municipal and utility work, industrial. We have members that, work in energy plants. We have one member who's a sub on a nuclear power plant. And those, as you can imagine, those reactors require a lot of water.
Yes.
And, I think we know a few guys that know what to do with that, right?
Absolutely.
So, the association, President, you're talking about, business growth and everything. What better way than to join a group of other professionals just like you, right? Where you sort of feed off of each other's background, feed off of each other's success,
right?
Exchanging ideas. That's where, I feel like our members probably get the most value out of this association is, through the networking, right?
Yes.
And, most of the feedback that I get from our members is just, you have to be involved. You can't just, fill out a membership application, become a PHCC member, and then expect that everything's going to explode. But you were providing a platform for you to come and grow with others, learn from others.
Yeah.
And so that's what PHCC is all about. And, it's not just the networking, it's also, the continuing education opportunities. We have an apprenticeship program for plumbing and for HVAC, and making sure that, we're producing that next generation of tradesmen. And then we also provide advocacy as well. It's a heavily regulated industry, and that's obviously where I come in, and making sure that policymakers understand not just PHCC, right, but what the industry is.
Yes.
Because they don't have that, and policymakers don't have that understanding, and it's not because they're ignorant. It's because we're competing with thousands of other interests, right, from a variety of industries, from financial services and technology firms and agriculture, right? It's a pretty powerful force on Capitol Hill. Environmental groups, so they all have their spiel. They all have to, they're educating policymakers on their importance in the world.
Yes.
Right. And so that's where I come in and try to educate the policymakers on, what plumbing and HVAC contractors do, why they're important. Right. And, fortunately, I can sit down with a member of Congress or staff and, just kind of remind them, remember that you just not too long ago, you probably had to wash your hands. It was nice that the water was warm. Don't take that for granted. We're sitting in a building with clean indoor air.
Yeah.
All right. These things that you don't really think about. All right. But you're sitting here reaping the benefits of what our members do, and you're not even thinking about it. And generally, when I frame things in those terms, the light bulb goes off almost immediately.
Right. Mark, I think the first time I remember you, in Washington, I'm from Washington State, and Todd got fired up about changing the rule. One plumber could only sign for 2 apprentices.
Yes.
And so we're like, let's make it so one plumber can sign for 3 apprentices in residential, because that would help us contractors be able to train more people.
Exactly.
And free up some plumbers to sign for commercial hours. And so that kind of invigorated PHCC in Washington. We went to work, and we actually changed that law. And you came out and went to our state capital, Olympia, with us.
Yeah.
And that's when that was when I realized, wait a second, this isn't something that any of us could have done on our own, but we came together. PHCC gave us that platform, and then you have the national expertise to come out and guide us. We didn't know what to do when we went to Olympia.
Yeah, but
So you came out. I remember this big huddle meeting where we all sat in a big room, and you kind of told us, here's the talking points. This is what we're going to say, what we're not going to say. This isn't really about politics. This is about getting one plumber to be able to sign for 3 apprentices.
Right.
That's what we're here for. And that was so awesome, Mark. And we actually got a law passed.
Yeah, and they listened because they understood the importance of it. And I think that when you're looking at apprentice ratios, obviously there's a lot of choke points in the pipeline.
Yes.
From getting those job seekers in from one end to the other, where they become a journeyman.
Yeah.
And the ratios is one of those choke points, I think, right? Because it's hard enough just to get people interested in the trades. And then once you get them in, it's like, look, if you have only a 2-to-1 ratio, right, that means that you're going to have other apprentices that are sitting out on a job, right? And so it's one thing if this job requires scaffolding, hard hats, and stuff falling out of the sky. Yeah, you want to. I understand the concept of wanting to minimize, how many inexperienced people are going to be on that job site. But if you're just swapping out like a garbage disposal, or doing like residential service of any kind, you can. Yeah, I think you can loosen those rules up a little bit so that you have more people learning on the job, and just take care of one of those. It doesn't solve the problem, but it certainly relieves one of those choke points.
Yeah. What it did for us was it helped us train more commercial plumbers because the hours weren't so tied up training the apprentices. But I think the hour thing, this is a little sidebar, but it takes 6,000 hours or whatever it does without any organization to get trained up. But if you have a focused organization, these kids don't lack capacity, they lack teachers.
Yeah.
And so as we dial up our training programs, and there's more stuff online, and there's more AI, and there's all sorts of new ways to learn, I think we can actually speed up that process. It's still going to take time to get wise, but that basic information so you can actually start going out and fixing things.
Yeah.
Can happen a lot.
I think the technological aspect is certainly something that younger people that are just entering the workforce, that's what's going to interest them because they like technology.
Right.
And I get that, but that's just one of the things, right? It's still hard work.
Yes.
And you still gotta, so I think that might that might make people a little bit hesitant about whether or not they want to enter a job like this, right? I tell people college is not for everybody. Well, you know what? Neither is the trades.
Yeah.
So even with the technological aspect, we still need people coming in that are ready to get their hands dirty.
Yeah.
And then the other sort of peripherals there is making sure that parents are having those kitchen table conversations. Right. Saying, okay, well, you can go to college, or, have you thought about the trades? It pays really well. You learned during the pandemic that these are essential workers, and, you have job security there. You have a skill set that's going to last you for the rest of your life. Right. And then you got to make sure that high school guidance counselors are also having those conversations, and not being evaluated on how many kids they can send to college. Right.
Oh man, you're pushing some buttons now, Mark.
So, but I mean, it's true. It's the truth. We're not, I'm obviously a product of a 4-year college education.
Sure.
We never had those conversations in my household. It just, and not because my parents were telling me, no, you can't go into trades. It never came up. It was just college was that expectation. And it worked out for me. Right. But I came in at a time like right before you had the market flooded with people with degrees.
Yes.
And I think a lot of that had to do with, essentially pop-up institutions that were just kind of taking advantage of student loan programs.
Yeah.
And just giving people BS degrees and then flooding the market with people with useless degrees. I think that played a big role in that.
Yeah.
And it's certainly, I think, as someone that has a college degree, and I worked very hard to get my bachelor's and my master's in public policy, and those other sort of like fly-by-night institutions really kind of watered down what it means to have a college degree.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
But in the end, this $2 trillion student loan crisis has done a lot to get people more interested in other career paths, including the building trade. So in the end, it's kind of, almost like a blessing in disguise, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, so I run into back on the ground, trying to promote PHCC, and there's so many contractors that you don't know what it is. And it's kind of interesting. I think one of the reasons that a lot of people see each other as competitors, but I think one of the reasons for that is a lot of people quit working for their boss the wrong way. Like they disappear or start the business on the side or whatever. It's kind of goofy. I've had 2 people leave me the right way. Okay. They took me to dinner. Thank you for the privilege, the honor, and for all the stuff, all the niceties.
Yep.
And I'd like to do my own business. And then, of course, you say, bless you, right? Like, sorry to see you go, but great, let's do this. And then you want to help them. And so I think a lot of guys kind of go about it that the wrong way, and they don't realize that we can be friends. But really, PHCC is friends in your own market. And then we have friends on a national level. And we all work together to make our working environment better.
I think one of the things that you touch on is the importance of maintaining a good relationship with your former employer or anyone for that reason, and, I get the need for someone to just go and do what they got to do, don't take it personally, but I'm going to go do this. Right. Bye.
Yeah.
And, there's a part of me that says, a business owner shouldn't take that personally. But on the other side, like how much effort does it take to just do it the right way? Like, and do what your former employee did. And, thanks for the opportunity. Like, and you as a business owner probably felt like, okay, I had something to do with this kid's success.
Totally.
And that's, kind of a touching of the hands, if you will.
Absolutely.
Where, you were successful, and then this person learned from you. They learned how to be successful from you. And that's something that, that's not something you don't get on a paycheck.
Right.
So
I saw a picture recently, Mark, a picture of me and a bunch of my guys beside a van for some portrait. And every one of the guys is in business for himself.
Nice.
And that made me feel good.
And these are all your former employees.
Yeah, all these guys.
Oh my God.
All these guys are rocking it out there. I can call
about all the lives that you played a part in improving.
Yeah. And so I think if you leave, that's how we all start. Right. And so leave the right way so that you can be friends.
Right.
And everybody's going to be sad to see you go, but they're also going to be proud of you at the same time.
Right at the same time, but it's also, this is a relationship driven business. Like any business is a relationship. My line of work obviously is very relationship driven. By not burning bridges, by leaving on a good note, you have that relationship that exists so that down the road, there might be a time where maybe you need to team up on something, or they need something from you, or you need something from them. And you have that good relationship, that good foundation that was never cracked, because they, in large part because, you parted on the right terms.
Right.
A little bit of that effort was made.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's another thing, is that even if you don't want to, even if you feel like you don't have the time to do things the right way, there is that incentive there to make sure that you part on the right terms.
Right.
And especially if you want to be successful, because if this is how you're ending all of your relationships, like, I don't see how you become successful as a business person or just a professional in general.
Exactly. And so now this is your line of work. Like, you're a lobbyist.
Yes.
So relationships is your whole career.
Yeah.
Because we come to you and you build relationships to help us get what we want done.
Exactly. And a lot of times there's, when you're in a relationship, a lot of times there's going to be disagreement, right? Well, no, a lot of times say, Mark, we can't support you on this, but let us know where we can help somewhere else. And you just have to agree to disagree, just like you would in any relationship. And a lot of times, it's the opposite. But what it starts with, just having like that good rapport and setting a foundation where the right people are responding to your phone calls and responding to your emails, and even proactively reaching out to you to need something, like if they need something.
Yes.
So, and that's in the more that people are reaching out to me, right, that means that they're looking not to me as Mark, but to PHCC as a resource. When they're reaching out to me, when policymakers proactively reach out to me, they need information about our industry.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to provide that and make sure that they have the right information that they need so that they can make the right decisions, so that our guys are not hurt and a lot of times even helped a little bit, by whatever, regulatory or legislative relief can be provided.
Right. So a lobbyist is like, so for the people that don't understand lobbying, it's like, so the plumbers, so PHCC, you're on the staff of PHCC National, and then, so you understand our industry.
Yes.
Then the lawmakers, when they have some law that might have to do with plumbers, you can let them know it does, or they can call you.
They can call me. A lot of times I'll try to be proactive on that front, because then a lot of times they got so much going on that they're not going to think to reach out to PHCC on something. So I have to keep my ear to the ground and make sure that, I'm aware of the things that are going on. And if I hear that, somebody wants to introduce a workforce bill that's going to, involve Workforce Innovation Opportunities Act, which, I focus a lot of time on, I reach out to those offices proactively and say, hey, I heard you're working on this. Can you and then I'll ask some questions, make sure I understand what they're trying to do, and then let them know how that's going to impact PHCC, how that's going to impact plumbing and HVAC contractors, how it's going to impact their employees and their customers, and making sure that they take all of those things into consideration, because they themselves are also customers of plumbing and HVAC contractors. And so they want to make, just for their own personal intents, they want to make sure that they're doing the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So Mark, you're actually representing every plumber out there. Really, this hit me. Like, you're working for PHCC, but PHCC is working for the industry. So when you're talking to some senator about some,
I'm not the only there. I'm one of, maybe you could say one of many.
yeah,
But I mean,
that's part of the job, though. Is, yeah, you're not the representative, but
like if they need something that's plumbing related, they have me in their Rolodex.
Yeah, very cool. So how'd you find PHCC? How'd that all happen?
Oh, it's an interesting story. I was at an association that represented CDL schools, right? So there's schools that training truck drivers, and that's a really cool industry. And you want to talk about like hardworking people and an ungrateful, a job that doesn't get a lot of gratitude. Like trucking rates up there. But anyway, I had been there for a few years. I was ready to move on. And I found an anonymous job posting, and I was reading the description of the organization. I said, this sounds very boilerplate. And so I copied and pasted that paragraph into Google to see what would come up. And PHCC was the first thing. And I'm like, well, this is great. because like I pass this place every day on the way to work. So this would cut my commute down by like a good 30 minutes. And this seems like a pretty cool industry. And so when I sent the letter, I sent it with PHCC's address on it, like to kind of let them know that like, yeah, I figured out it was you guys, hoping that would kind of, and it did. I didn't get the phone call, so I submitted that resume in October, and then I got a call back from the executive VP at the time around February, asking me if I was still interested. And I said, well, yes, I am. And so I interviewed with him over the phone. And then within a week, I was on the phone with the hiring committee. And that was Ken Nielsen, who was president of PHCC at the time, Lori Kriegler, who was the past president, and Hunter Botto, who was at that time, he was president-elect.
Okay.
Or vice president, right? Because he had just gotten, because it wasn't until 2 years after that, like during the pandemic when he became president. So that was my hiring committee. And that interview was supposed to go about an hour. It probably went about 15 minutes over. Had a great rapport with them. And then, my future boss at the time was like, okay, we have to end this call. And then within an hour, I got heard back from HR and filled out the paperwork, and it was a done deal.
Awesome. Yeah. And so for now being a plumber, Mark, when I hear you representing our industry, you have a profound understanding of what's going on in the trade.
I have a curiosity over how things work. So when I come to the trade show, like I like to talk to the exhibitors, especially the ones that are doing fixtures, right, water heaters, and just ask them how things work. So I think it's important to have that curiosity of how things work. And I've always been fascinated by that.
Right. Well, and you know how DC works too. Like when we come to DC in the spring, you line us all out. You guys line us all out, and it makes the job so much easier.
Yeah.
We have our talking points just like we did in Washington.
Yeah.
That is such a fun experience. Do people I've always thought we should bring our kids with us. Like
People brought their kids, sure.
What an amazing experience.
Yeah. No, I remember the first time I did a ledge conference for PHCC back in 2019. Like, yeah, there were people who brought their kids. That was always something that they did.
Yeah. So. What's profound to me is when we go into those rooms, like the news, it feels like we're really polarized in the news. But when we go in there, there are people like you and me, and we might vote different, but really they're just approaching things from a little bit different angle. You kind of know the angles a little bit.
Oh, yeah, because we're having policy discussions. We're not having political discussions.
Yeah.
And sometimes those policy discussions tend to become political. But you're having a nuts and bolts conversation. As staff or anyone anyone with any level of intelligence is not going to question someone that's been doing this job for like 20, 30 years. Right. They're going to see that person for having the subject matter expertise that they have.
Right.
And that's where a lot of the focus of those discussions is talking about just having those policy discussions, talking about how things work in the real world. The polarization, I think, happens a lot when you're going into the political side and the social side, and PHCC obviously doesn't dabble in that.
Right. What's always very impressive. And so what's on the docket now? Like what's hot right now? As far as policy.
I mean, there's a shutdown. I don't know if I call that hot.
It's going to be already dead.
I don't know. I mean, it depends. The dynamic there is pretty interesting if you do want to get political. I'll try to be as objective as possible, but I think on the one hand, you have Democrats that this is the only leverage they have.
Yeah.
All right. And so they're not going to Democrats in the Senate are not going to support a continuing resolution unless they can get some policy concessions out of Republicans in the administration. In this case, it has to do with health care, particularly Medicaid cuts under the big, beautiful bill, and also the sunsetting of the Affordable Care Act tax credit, right? And so I think Democrats are trying to corner Republicans on that because probably in the next couple of days, you're going to be hearing about what estimates are going to be looking like for premiums going into next year. And I imagine they're gonna increase substantially. I've heard as much as 20% or maybe more.
Wow.
And so the Democrats are hoping that they can pin that on Republicans and say, look, if we can get, like, you see what your premiums are going to look like going into next year, right? And this is why we're shutting down government. And then I think on the other side, on the Republican side, their argument is that, look, this is the same continuing resolution that Democrats have supported in the past. Why are they doing this now? And they're also trying to see what their tolerance is for pain, right? Now that you have military families are not getting paid, SNAP benefits are about to lapse. We'll probably see a lapse in funding for workforce initiatives. And then of course air traffic control. I've got some travel coming up after this, and so I'm certainly worried about it too. So they're it's sort of a game of chicken, almost at this point, and see who cracks first.
Yeah.
And I don't know who's going to crack first.
Yeah. It's hard to tell.
It's hard to tell.
We just have to watch and wait and see, right?
That's all we can do.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is there the refrigeration stuff? Is that being repealed at all, or is it going forward?
No. So my understanding of it, So my understanding of it is, so you have the technology transition rule under the AIM Act, right? Phasing down the use of 410 equipment, bringing in that new generation of equipment, running on R454 and R32, and so there part of that transition rule was that actually at the beginning of this year, contractors would have been prevented from installing any equipment that runs on 410A. And so that's been extended another year.
Okay.
All right. So that's expected to end, at the end of this year. And then after that, you're not able to install any more 410 equipment. EPA is looking at a way to just sort of do away with that sell-through period, right? So that whatever is left in inventory, like contractors can install that, so they're not stuck with stuff that they can't install, and there's nothing you can do with it. It has to go to the scrap heap, or you can install it because it's still it's new equipment.
Yeah.
It works.
Yes.
And there's not as much of it out there, right? And so even though you have a phase down of the refrigerant that fuels those products, you're still going to have less of those products. So it kind of balances out, and maybe that's kind of the transition that would make this transition a little bit more ideal. Kind of like what we saw with the transition from R22 to 410A. That was a pretty drawn out process, but at least it wasn't as fraught as it was this time around. I think doing away with that sell-through period, means that contractors can get rid of what's left of their 410 stock. And then on top of that, I can see how contractors maybe might want to, I can't sell you this, but I see you don't want to buy this brand new system. Maybe I can sell you this legacy system that's a little bit less, for a little bit less, maybe make it a little bit more affordable.
Right.
Because at that point they just want to get it off their shelves. Right. So I can see how they'd want to do that.
Yeah.
So
Very cool. Well, Mark, I appreciate your work for plumbing, heating, cooling contractors. And I don't see, there's no good reason for a plumbing, heating, cooling contractor not to be a member of PHCC. And because the more numbers, the better, the more clout you have in DC, right?
yeah, I mean, it's not just that. It's just it's a wonderful community. Total, and you kind of, I'm a part of my own sort of associations and stuff with people of similar interests, and just being around those people make me better.
Yes.
Right. I learn from them, they learn from me.
Yes.
And that's what you get here in this community.
Yes.
Come here, you will be a better contractor. You'll be a better business person. You'll make some friends, contacts. And, it's, that's why you do it in the end.
Yes.
Just join our community.
We're better together.
We are.
Can't do it. We can't. This is the kind of work you cannot do on your own.
Feed off each other's greatness.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Another show.
Appreciate it, man.
You got it.
All right, before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something Mark talked about today, and it's important. What you heard in this conversation is that none of the wins we talked about happen in isolation. Changing apprenticeship ratios, having a voice in regulations, protecting your business from decisions made by people who don't understand the trades, that only happens when contractors come together. That's exactly why I want to invite you to PHCC Connect in Milwaukee, happening October 19th through the 22nd. If you've never been, this is where the conversations you just heard with Mark happen in real life, face-to-face with contractors from all over the country who are dealing with the same challenges you are. And just as important as the national event, I want to encourage you to connect with your local PHCC chapter. That's where the real relationships are built, ideas get shared, and changes actually start in your own market. If you're tired of working for free, tired of fighting the same battles alone, and you want to be part of shaping the future of this trade instead of reacting to it, this is how you do it. Thanks again to Mark for the work he does on behalf of our industry, and thank you for listening and for the work you do every day. We'll see you on the next episode of the Trade Traction Roadshow, and hopefully in Milwaukee this October.